Hey horror fans, thanks for joining me for this review of a classic horror story. Yes, that is the title. It's not a title to come after that. It is a classic horror story. That's the title. Cast and crew information down below. And let's see what IMDb has to say here. In this gruesome suspense film, strangers traveling in southern Italy become stranded in the woods where they must fight desperately to get out alive. All right. All right. So, a couple of things to be said here. Uh, just to start, I guess I did see this on Netflix. It's a new film on Netflix, and lots of people talking about it there, and that's kind of why I jumped on it and watched this one. I talked about this one on our most recent episode of the podcast as well, and because I spend a lot of time on the podcast talking about remakes, reboots, sequels, and just kind of overall kind of themes in horror and kind of weird stuff like that. And kind of where this movie ends up kind of led to the conversation here. So, I hate to do this. I don't, if you caught other video reviews, um, I always say, I try to be as spoiler free as possible, and I usually try to cut off whatever I'm saying at a certain point that not to ruin too many things for you guys. Um, but this one I'm going to go in reverse. A complete spoiler alert. I'm going to probably say too much because I think to give it a true review and true, to kind of talk the truth, to talk what I want to talk about, what this film presents. Um, kind of got to talk about the ending and where this ends up and how it gets there. So if you haven't seen this or you don't want to be spoiled, um, your chance to turn it off. I'm sorry, I don't like to do that. I try to be as spoiler free, but every once in a while comes a movie where it's hard to not mention things. So with that, here we go, and start with the title. It's in. I'll just also say that I've watched this twice, and I watched it the second time because when I decided I wanted to talk about it on the podcast, I wanted to make sure that I was getting everything right or try to get it right. Um, I think the first time I watched it, I was kind of a little bit surprised towards the end with the message that came, because as I was watching it, I'm like, it was seeming like a lot like what I always, what you kind of see, a classic horror story. Um, Maybe if you haven't watched that many horror movies, maybe it doesn't, ring a bell. Maybe you missed it. Maybe it's not as familiar. Maybe that it's kind of pointed out here in this movie that, that this is like an American style movie, that we watch this kind of things all the time. So everybody's gonna know it. Where this is an Italian film, where an Italian audience might not be as familiar if they're just watching Italian horror. I'm not an Italian horror expert by any means, so I have no idea whether that's true or not. But so the first time I watched it, I was just, I did what I do sometimes, and that's um, watch it over here while I'm working in front of me, and just kind of keeping an eye on things and what's going. Obviously, this movie's a dubbed movie, subtitle movie, whichever way you want to play it. Um, so I have to, pay attention a little bit differently sometimes to those kind of movies. But anyway, like I said, kind of going back and forth. I'm like, yeah, okay, a group of people, they're traveling, blah blah, break down, get stuck in the woods. We've seen all this, blah blah. Then once the bad stuff comes and starts happening, you pay a little bit more attention to what is the bad stuff that's happening. The true horror moments. Obviously, I'm a horror fan, so I want to see those moments. I want to see when the people are dying, and that kind of thing's happening. And then you get to the end, and you see where this film ends up. Um, but what happens at the end is there's kind of like a message and a theme here, and what I found very interesting is when I watched it the second time, knowing where it ended up and knowing what was spoken, and watched it that second time, I could see how much it was not hidden, like it was done on purpose. And here comes the real spoiler of it, if you're still with me, is that one of these people in this, or there's an RV is traveling from point A to B, and with a group of people in it, and it breaks down or it crashes for A, B, or C reason, and basically leaving them stranded in the woods, and then of course bad stuff to follow. But what we find out towards the end of this movie is that one of the people on this RV is responsible for this happening. They wanted it to crash, and they are making a film out of everything that's happening here. So, when you know that, and you go back and watch this movie, and you know who this person is, and you listen to them and pay more attention to what they're doing, you can see them setting this up. Now, when you're me and you're watching it the first time, and you're just over there watching all this nonsense happening, you just, oh, it's a standard horror movie. Here they go. Oh, they broke down. Oh, there they go. You see the setup of the different characters. This person is that person is this. Okay, blah, blah, that. You kind of see it all. But then when you watch it the second time, you're like, we're watching this person, and they're being very specific. They're like trying to get people to do A, B, and C. You find out, and then once everything breaks at the end, you find out other things that they did more specifically, and either they mention or they show, but you can see it happening. And then even at the end, like I said, this person kind of goes a little bit more in detail about what they were trying to do and where they're trying to go, and they end up in a cabin, and you see the cabin, and the cabin is so Evil Dead. You got the deers and the heads on the wall and stuff like that. There's a scene much later in the movie. If you watched Midsommar, it screams Midsommar. I mean, it's it's there. I mean, it's there for you to see. There are going to be other movies you can think of in your head as you're watching this, that you may have seen, that you may recognize, that maybe they're duplicating here. There's tons of movies that we've seen, with cabins in the woods and bad stuff happening. So we can relate to that in a wide range of movies, and that's kind of the point here. Another point they're making, that's the American way. One of the American styles of movie. This person goes along the way of saying, they kind of come up with their, they mix it between a slasher and a little bit of a spiritual kind of ritual kind of thing here towards the end, where there's three different main people here, and that's who these people are worshiping, and they're the ones responsible for the killing. And this person mentions that that's their Freddy, Jason, and Michael. Obviously, they kind of mix it up because each of them is their own, and I mean you can argue the spiritualness of it, but I mean they're basic slashers. While those people in this movie, it seemed to be more of a spiritual thing or a religious thing, or seeing them as gods in a way, where I don't think as horror fans, you might think of Freddy, Jason, or Michael as a god, but otherwise, that's not their role in their movies. But anyway, so you see these things, and you see kind of where where it's not shying away from. It is glaringly there. So if you watch this the first time and you didn't really care about the message that they're trying to send towards the end of the movie, I could see you saying, hey, this movie was crap. I mean, I've seen all this before. They ended up in the cabin in the woods. Oh, this guy was the filmmaker. We've seen people, trick and trick people into being filmed and kill them. And we've seen everything there is in this movie. But, that just brings it back to the name of this movie. This movie is called A Classic Horror Story. So it's giving you that. It's giving you a classic horror story or multiples of different stories in one movie. It's just crazy. And like I said, the message that he tries to portray at the end, um, with the filming, and then he wants the ending, and obviously, one of these people, if you know the classic horror story, there's a final girl, and I guess that's kind of where he goes wrong here, or at least he knows it, but that person kind of, I guess, got it before he was prepared for it, and that he gets kind of mad that this person uh, almost ruined it for him, and this person goes into a tantrum, and you see it almost like a film set on the side, or sort of film set, like a trailer, and this person's in it, and they're all mad and just yelling that this person ruined it, and then there's someone else that we see who's in on it, who we don't think is in on it, and that person is talking to them, and that person is basically making fun of him because where he because he's frustrated, he can't get to that ending that he wanted, and again, but as you're watching him and his frustration there, and then you're seeing the victim, you're seeing classic horror story unfold because you know what's about to happen. Um, it comes back to bite him, and he obviously doesn't realize that at that point now he's part of the story, and now now it's all gonna end in a classic horror story way. So it's just lots of different angles and just interesting twists and turns towards the end of it. So like on the podcast, that's kind of where I was going is in a world of remakes, reboots, long-awaited sequels, whether you wanted them or not, and then you see this movie. What do you think of this movie? It's titled a classic horror story. Has a lot of classic horror in it, or elements of horror in it, jammed all together, and making commentary on horror. Does that make this a new movie? Does it make it a classic horror story? Where it's obviously not a remake of anything specifically, but it's a remake and portion of other movies, if you want to say. Just a lot of different ideas, and if you kind of put on your thinking hat of this movie, and what it's telling you, or what you take away from it. Like I said, I could see a lot of people just watching it and being like, I've seen all this crap and that's it, and turning it off. There's even a part at the end, where the movie kind of plays the viewer and pretends that some random person is out there on a fake Netflix has just watched this movie, or not even watched the whole movie, watch like the beginning part and then fast forward to the end of the movie, and it's just like, I'm gonna rate this with a thumbs down and move on. And again, so it's are you thinking about it? What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about the themes in this movie, or are you just being like, okay, people in a trailer, okay, they're dead. I've seen this before. Next movie. Again, I don't know the whole Italian versus American horror and so forth. I don't know enough about their horror to tell you what they're trying to say from that angle. Obviously, they're making a statement on American horror and what we watch. But I love what we watch, so I have no problem with that. More blood and guts, the better. So as far as a movie standpoint, there is blood and guts in it. There is some good scenes from that angle. Like I said, I've ruined the movie for you, but again, if you're just watching it, there's that supposed surprise twist. I mean, like I said, if you're paying really close attention, maybe you'll pick up on it sooner than I did. Like I said, I really wasn't paying attention for that kind of a twist. But now maybe if you've watched this all the way through and you've seen what I've said, and you watch it for the first time and you know that, maybe you'll have something to look for. It just depends. Anyway, I'm going to give this one 3 pools of blood out of 5. Again, I like where they said, I like the direction, I like the little bit of twist, even though a lot of it, again, is a classic horror story. A lot of it is what we've seen. but I like that they don't shy away from it. I like that they didn't stress to put in something super new of their own to, kind of put their own twist and their own mark on it, just for the sake of doing it, because we've seen so many movies, Cabin in the Woods, where, where the A, B, C, D, E, F, G happen to the eventual people out there, and then, you know, making it their own in one way or the other. And sometimes it's not even their own, it's just, same thing, and you like it or you don't. So I liked what they were trying to do overall, and thought the movie was well done. It's kind of hard to tell acting and so forth because it's not in English and so forth. But there are some bloody scenes. They did that well, and again, like I said, it to me it was much better and much more appreciated once you get to the end and you kind of see what they're saying, and then if you go back and you watch it and you find out all the things that lead and all the bases they covered to get there. So yeah, 3 pulls and left. All right, a classic review, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, Horror's Gory Reviews.blogspot.com, where you can find more of these reviews. Written ones specifically, but the video reviews are there as well. If you're just interested in the video reviews, subscribe to this channel. Twitter, Facebook information down below as well. Like, follow is appreciated. You want to talk about this movie, you want to talk about other movies, you have something you want me to review, we can try to make it happen. Hit me up there. Twitter is probably better than Facebook, but either place. If you want to comment on this movie, feel free to do so in the comment section. You can comment on how I spoiled this video, spoiled this movie, and then the comment section as well. You can complain about it there. I'll take it. I tried not to, but I just had to this occasion. I think every reviewer gets one every once in a while. You were spoiler alert earlier on, so hopefully you caught that. So with that, again, a classic horror story, a classic review, and I'll catch you on the next one, horror fans.